Hey, spiritual Barbies and Kens. Welcome to another episode of the Spiritual Sisters podcast. It is Gabrielle Celeste.
Hey guys, we're officially 1 year older now. How old are you now, Gabs?
25 forever.
She wishes. Welcome back. And today we have the beautiful Angelica Ray joining with us. Hello, Angelica.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So I think we've known about you for a while. I think we were kind of watching you from afar, like stalkers that we are,
Like
because
stalkers.
that's what we
Because that's what
do.
cancers do.
That is. So we know a little bit about you, but I'm excited to get to know more and to learn about what it is that you're here to talk to us about. And we're going to jump into the questions that we ask our guests. So, Gabs, do you want to ask? You already grilled her on the podcast before the podcast, but
this is so true. And I'll get there and I'll add my little side comments. But Angelica, would you be so kind as to share your big three in astrology with us?
Of course. I am a proud Virgo sun with a Sag rising and a Cancer moon. So I've got a nice blend of energies in there.
Yeah, I was saying,
yeah.
so on the podcast, before the podcast, everyone in our family has some kind of prominent Virgo, Cancer, or Sag placement. I was like, oh, she's going to fit right in. And then we were chatting separate from this. And, I was sharing that a lot of our family's out in San Diego, and come to find out, you are too, right?
Born and raised in northern San Diego County. Yeah, so there's lots of synchronicities. I was, just immediately kind of drawn to you guys. And someone asked before I was recording, like, oh, are you nervous? And I was like, no, I feel like I've known them forever already. So maybe all of these different things are blending for beautiful familiarity between us.
Love it. My husband went to San Diego State, so he loves San Diego. Any chance he can get to get down there, he's trying to. I'm trying to get down there in the next few weeks. And he's like, when are we going? And I'm like, what do you mean we? And he's like, well, you said we were going. I was like, what? And
Me, not you.
he goes, wait. Let me reframe that. You said you were going, and I'm gonna hop on and go with you and do my own thing. And like any chance he can get, he's trying to relive his college days. He thinks he's still 23.
Listen, that's the way Aztecs do. Those San Diego State kids, I happen to be one.
Oh,
We,
man.
those were the glory days. It was a whole lot of fun and some learning that happened along the way.
Oh man, I've heard some stories. One of the stories, real quick, he told me was that they went because you would go down and party in TJ when it was right. And anyway, they got stuck at the border one night, and they had to sleep in the car while they were waiting for the border to open back up. So you can't be doing that anymore.
Listen, it's crazy. I try to explain people like what that experience was like because literally if the weather was nice, it was like we're not going to class, we're going to Mexico for tacos and Corona. Like see you guys later. We're going to TJ for the afternoon for some tacos and some cerveza. So yeah, but literally like you can't do that at all anymore. Like it's way not safe. It was probably already sketchy back then, but
yeah, totally. Anyway, that's my husband's story.
We love it. Okay, so what is your makeup in human design?
I am a manifesting generator. I'm a 2-4 Manny Gen.
Isn't it exhausting?
It is, and sometimes I wonder, like, what something's not adding up because I don't have all this energy I'm supposed to have, I'm also an emotional Manny Gen, which is a little bit different. I think that gives a different and like unique flavor to the vibe because I really have to wait for that clarity and that like emotional neutrality, which means sometimes maybe I don't move as fast as other types of Manny Gens. But
it's exhausting. Yeah.
I was going to ask, I was like, oh, what's the authority? I believe it's called, because I'm not by any means a human design expert, but I am learning. And yeah, the emotional, it's like you're 80% like, if you're 80% on a subject or anything about a decision, that's basically like your version of 100 is how I understand it, right?
That yeah, that's basically the nutshell of it. But the other really interesting thing is like you have to. So personally, the way I experience it is the emotional wave is like super high peaks and then like low valleys, and so you have to wait until you're neutral to make a decision, which is kind of like opposite of what you would think. You would think like, oh yeah, if you feel really great about a decision, jump in and say yes. If you feel really bad about it, say no. But and also sometimes that emotional wave is not as clear or not as descriptive of what the actual right choice is as it could be. So
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
So much to
Human.
sit with there. Human design is another rabbit hole for sure, Angelica. So, what are some podcasts that you're listening to these days that you recommend?
Ooh, this is really gonna give my two line in my human design away because I am like such a nerd about the things that I'm into. I start every day with at least one health podcast. So Dr. Stephen Cabral is like my dog in my head, and he does like these 20-minute daily podcasts that are just full of really like solid, just really good information about holistic health and wellness. So I really am loving that. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a Joe Rogan fan. I find those conversations just like super interesting. Not that I always agree or disagree, but just to hear that style of conversation is really just like really enlightening for me, I think, and just interesting. What else am I listening to? I will get into the astrology of it all. So this whole Jupiter moving into Gemini is happening in my 7th house, and it's like she's down a relationship rabbit hole right now. And I've been diving into Alison Armstrong's work, which is all about understanding like men and the way men and women work differently. And so those are kind of like that's what's in my vibe right now.
Nicole's thinking, I can see her face. She's piqued her interest.
Yeah, no, I was just thinking. I wrote down Dr. Stephen Cabral's name because I like the quick ones. So I like Dr. Huberman, but it's such a commitment because the episodes are so long, and I feel the same way about Joe Rogan, where the episodes are just so long that I have a really hard time committing to episodes that are like anything over an hour. I usually don't listen, or I have to listen only on certain days. But that's really interesting, that last one that you were talking about too, just the differences between men and women in relationships. That sounds like a good one.
Yeah.
Her body of work is incredible. She wrote a book called The Queen's Code, and she basically channeled it, is how she describes it, and has been teaching just the masculine and feminine dynamics, but specifically teaching about men to women and like ways to better relate and understand kind of how men operate. So it's,
Interesting.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you could read for anyone as a psychic, who would it be?
Ooh, these are good questions. If I could read for anyone as a psychic. So I'm going to take this in the direction of I really enjoy Anthony Bourdain, and I love his energy. And he's kind of the only celebrity that I've felt like had a visceral experience of when he passed. I would have loved to connect with him, and I feel like he would have been maybe completely not open and been like, "Oh, this is a bunch of bullshit," that would have been super fun, or he would have been potentially really into it. Who knows? But that's who I would say, I think.
That's a good one.
Mm-hmm.
My husband loves him.
Yeah.
He's a fascinating soul.
Yeah,
Totally. Jinx. So, if you could go to a concert of any artist, who would it be and why?
And it can be dead or alive.
Ooh. Any artist, dead or alive. Okay, I'm having a moment with Malte Martin, the handpan artist. I don't know if you guys know who he is, but he plays the handpan, and it's like this incredibly ethereal instrument that basically you just like bliss out listening to. It's incredible. So that's who I would say right now.
I love this question because we get answers from every end of the spectrum, and I love it. I love it. It's like my favorite one. Okay, thank you for playing our game.
I love this game.
So, today you are here to talk to us about energetic boundaries and protection. And I feel like this is so fitting because behind the scenes, guys, there's always some kind of technical issue. And oh my gosh, we had the most technical issues, I would say, right now. And things were popping up that we've never seen before. And we've been doing this for over a year now. And I was like, what is that? I don't know what this means. And Angelica, you were such a trooper trying to figure it out. And so you said something before we jumped back on for the second time to try to get this going again. And what did you say?
I said it feels like we're about to spit some hot fire because all of these technical issues and all of this resistance is usually a sign that whatever we're about to put out, there's something in the field that doesn't want it out. And so it makes me excited.
I feel that. I have like goosebumps when you said that. So usually for me, that's like when something's hell yes and very spot on. So, oh my gosh. Well, but before that, hold on, before we jump into that, so you were, I think, like the OG student of our Queen Mother. Is that correct, Nikki Novo?
Yeah. So it's a long road and a wild story, but yeah, I would say, and I think she would probably say too, that my work with her work with me was what inspired a lot of the movements and the teachings that she has shared broadly since. So yeah.
I love that.
Yeah.
Just curious, how did you guys meet? Because I'm so nosy. I feel
Was
like
it a
I've
blind
heard her
date?
story. Okay, the best. I think she said it on a podcast, but I don't quite recall the details.
It's not nearly as sexy as a blind date. I believe I believe I heard her on a podcast probably back in like 2019, and I reached out to her and had a session with her. And then after the session, I remember feeling like, oh, you're meant to teach me something. Like there's something here. So I reached out and asked her what that looks like, or what that experience is working with her more deeply. And she was like, I felt the same way about you. And then the rest is kind of history. So it's very unsexy. But we started working together, and then I think our work helped her develop a framework that was replicable in teaching other people. And then I, at one point, was teaching alongside of her. So yeah, that's how we met. Yeah.
So all you soul teacher and soul reading method graduates have Angelica to thank. So thank you, Angelica.
Thank you, Angelica.
I will not take credit, but I'm grateful for the work that has served and the ways that it has served people.
Definitely. Okay, go ahead, Gabs. Take it away.
So one of those pieces that I don't know, and I feel like in my cohort, she said that had been added after the fact because she realized like the importance of it. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but Nichole and I have talked about the topic that we're focusing on, just like comments here and there in other episodes, but energetic boundaries and protections, and just the importance of knowing that, or at least having some type of foundation before you get into this work, because if not, you are opening up literal portals. You are subjecting yourself to what we call entities and or maybe not so great beings. And I know I've personally had that experience, and I'm not sure if you have had this in the readings that you've done, but my readings tend to have like a theme throughout like the week. So like this week will be like relationships, the following week will be career, but quite literally this week at time of recording, um the theme has been protections. And I have a client, and she's also triple water sign like myself, and she was sharing, and she ended up like booking a session with me for a healing. But she's like, she's very intuitive, and she's coming into this work, and I'm like, oh my gosh, we have to like get the boundaries up and ready because you're open. And she did share some crazy stories, which I'm not going to get into, but I would love for you to share just what they are and how people can use them, and just all the things, and just your experience with them.
Yeah, I totally resonate with that idea about themes and kind of seeing things come in waves. It's almost like, when you walk into the grocery store or whatever, and there's like no line, and then all of a sudden the line like forms, and then there's no line again. It's like waves of people experiencing similar things at the same time. And boundaries are really up in a lot of my work right now as well. And I have some ideas as to why that is. But I'm actually going to take it one step further and say energetic boundaries are not just a necessity for people who are doing any sort of intuitive or healing work anymore. Energetic boundaries are a necessity for navigating the world that we're living in. And that is going to be increasingly important as time passes for a lot of reasons, which we can talk about. But before, if you're listening to this, and I know you wouldn't dare turn off this podcast, just because you're not doing professional readings or whatever, I just want to let you know that this conversation is for you. And it's probably the most important thing that clients are coming to me for. And it's where all of the work, I believe, begins. So the first thing I'll say is energetic boundaries are designed to maintain hygiene for your energetic body the way, hopefully, you maintain hygiene for your physical body. When you sweat or you go into an old dusty basement or, move through crowded places and spaces, you attract things. Things come to you, you pick up dirt, grime, cobwebs, whatever the case may be. And the same works in the spiritual realm. And if you're not cleansing that and clearing that and protecting yourself the way you would put on clothes to do that, you're leaving yourself incredibly vulnerable, which I believe in the past has had less consequences than it has currently and that it will have going forward. So that's why I'm really passionate about this subject of boundaries.
So we have some friends, some podcast friends, and they had, I think it was sometime last year, they went on like a paranormal kind of field trip. And before they went, Gabby sent them like an energetic protection to say, and they did. They definitely used it, and it was kind of a spooky night. And I was glad that they had it. Well, fast forward, so a week before this comes out, they are actually going to the Conjuring House, and they're doing a like paranormal kind of investigation there. And we went to go see Two Girls, One Ghost, Gabs, and that's where they went too, right? That's what their show was based on. Yep. So anyway, our friends are going to the Conjuring House, and I told them, make sure you guys are using the protections and like really putting up those boundaries. And I think that they recognize how important they are. And they're not doing spiritual work, but they're just kind of going to like check out a spooky place. And they're going with another podcasting guy. Shout out Scott and Ryan from Beyond the Shadows and Kevin from Where the Weird Ones Are. They're going, the three of them. I was just listening to an episode that Kevin did with was it Sierra? I think it was Sierra from Twisted and Uncorked, and they were talking about their experiences with haunted, like living in haunted houses and things like that, and how they are really big on making sure that they have their protections in place. And, Kevin talked about how he prays and how he, when he sees things, and Sierra was talking about just other things she does, right? A lot of crystal work and things like that. So I think that even people that aren't doing the work are becoming more aware of it. And yes, these are people that are in the realm in the sense that they're interested in paranormal type stuff and, they want to do the investigations and they want to learn. But I think it's becoming something that people are kind of knowing and like noticing that, oh, like this isn't just some hippie woo woo thing. Like it's kind of important for everybody. So what would you say for people like that are going into, paranormal investigations? How would you say would be the best way to protect themselves in situations like that? Because we know that there's heavy stuff in like the Conjuring House, right?
Ooh, that's a good question. That type of spooky stuff, I don't mess with personally because I'm like, keep it away from me. I think everyday life offers enough spooky stuff right now. So my personal bend is not towards seeking out extra things like that per se. But I would say being very clear about your intentions and why you're going into a space like that. That's what comes through as like being first and foremost important. I think when you go into places or spaces without clear intentions, you're very liable to be. Can we cuss on this podcast?
Oh my God, that's all we do.
I'm pretty sure. I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty sure I've heard somebody. Yeah, you're liable to be fucked with, and some of these entities like that. And if you're going into their domain to like poke and prod at them to see if they're real, they're gonna poke and prod back at you. And so going in with a really clear intention of what you're there to do, how in doing that you're intending to be of service to the light in some way, shape, or form, or to these beings that might inhabit that space, I think is incredibly important. I like to think of energetic protection with 4 steps. So cleanse, clear, charge, and protect. So cleanse is like getting the dirt off. Clearing is getting yourself back to a neutral state so that you have an understanding of what neutrality feels like, because how do you know if something's come in if you don't have a baseline for that? And then charge is what do you need in your space? So what energy are you inviting in? What do you want to be fortified with? So in a situation where you're going into that type of environment, you might need extra courage. You might need maybe a little bit more of that Kali energy that is like kind of that warrior, archetype. And then the protection, which is like, how do we seal it all up, right? So there's not portals and places, porosity for things to seep in. So that's kind of the 4 steps I think of any energetic hygiene practice has to have those elements.
So what might that look like in real life? So what would be an example of, and I already forgot the order, but like what would be an example of the cleansing and the recharging and the protection? Like, because I kind of in my mind, I'm like, oh, maybe I would do this when you were talking about the different steps that there are, but I might be totally wrong. So what would be like a practical, like you can do, one of these 3 things for this step or one of these 3 for this other step?
Yes, that's a great question. So for the cleanse step, you can do it, I don't want to say energetically, but you can do it almost like in your mind's eye, right? Or you can do it physically. It works just as well both ways. Sometimes you don't have what you need to do it physical in the kind of 3D realm, so you have to just do it energetically. But that looks like using some element, so smoke, maybe water, air, fire even you can use, and maybe you light a match and you are literally kind of seeing that fire burn up anything that is in the field. Maybe you want to use water and you see water cleansing, or sometimes even if all you can do is wash your hands and you're imagining that as you're washing your hands, anything that's stuck to you is being washed off. So it's more of understanding the spirit of the practice. I have something that I offer on my website, the Daily Energy Practice, where you can hear me go through all of those 4 steps. And then once you get the hang of it, you can make it as portable as you need it to be, as ceremonial as you need it to be. But those are some examples of cleanse. When I think about clear, I think about turning a canvas back to neutral. So what are the emotional patterns that I'm holding on to right now? What's in my field that I can release to get myself back to a really neutral place? Have I picked up sadness from the friend that I was on the phone with who was feeling sad? Did I wake up with extra anxiety this morning? Can I see those things in my mind's eye on this canvas of my energetic field and watch them dissolve back into neutrality, back into whiteness? So that's kind of the intention behind that step. Like I said, the charge step, you can charge with anything that feels useful. So maybe that looks like having your favorite crystal or your favorite card with you in your workspace for the day. Maybe it looks like bringing the emotional support animal that you have, and in your mind's eye, imagining them, close to you and having their energy as that love, that pure joy, charging up your space. So it can really be super flexible depending upon what you're needing. And then that last step, that protection, lots of people like to use a bubble, and that bubble can take on different textures. So maybe one day you need like a really clear, bright bubble, and it's okay if it's a little thinner and you kind of are a little bit more open and able to engage with the world. Maybe some days that bitch needs to be like, double whatever steel. Like, who knows? Like, if I'm going to a concert, I'm probably not using my light, airy fairy bubble. Like, I'm probably double down in really maintaining a solid energetic boundary. So it's flexible. And I think that's the beauty of this work, is once you learn the rules like a scientist, or learn some sort of foundation or groundwork, I really inspire people to break them like the artists that they are, and to be inspired to make a practice your own.
Would you also say maybe for their protection piece to call in whoever that might be? Like Archangel Michael, I swear, is like the busiest angel ever, because man, does he get called in all the time. Mm-hmm. Would you recommend calling in like Archangel Michael or even any other angels, or is he kind of the go-to when it comes to that?
That's a beautiful point. Yes, of course. You can bring that in for protection. If there's ancestors that you feel are incredibly protective of you, you can invite them into that space of protection. So, I mean, anything really. I've seen people use like different divine, entities or gods or goddesses in different corners of their space, and kind of seeing, like I said, Kali holding down this fort, whatever you might work with. So yeah.
Who is that? I've never heard of them.
Kali Ma. She's a Hindu goddess. She's a warrior. She has like 8 hands, 12 hands.
Oh.
So
I have a picture.
She is fierce, and she is very much like a warrior spirit, but a warrior in protection of the light, basically, and protection of the innocent. So it's an energy that I enjoy.
I have another question about when you were saying like you could use fire and you could light something, and like lighting a match. And so one of my thoughts was, maybe taking incense or taking sage. I know that the use of sage is kind of controversial in depending on who it is, because they say it's a closed practice, and unless you're Native American ancestry, you probably shouldn't be using it. What is kind of your understanding or your take on using things like sage or dragon's blood, or is that what it's called? Dragon's blood, the red one? Mm-hmm. Yeah, on those things, because I know some people are open to it, and some people are like, no, you can't do it unless you're of that culture.
My take again goes back to intention and reverence for the practice. Where are you harvesting? Like, where are you getting your sage from? Maybe the sage that you get at Kroger might not have the same energetic constitution that is sage that you receive or that you purchase from someone who stewards the land and does so in a way that pays homage to indigenous people that farmed it, but also, if you feel a connection to that and you want that as part of your practice, I'm not here to tell you don't buy the sage at Kroger if that's like what you need and that's what you have access to. I would, again, just bring it back to what is your intention in using this? Is this the best tool to support that intention? And can you make sure that you're using it in integrity to the best of your ability?
And I wonder to that too, if somebody was getting it from like Kroger, Vons, or wherever, if before they use it, if they kind of have their own work with it in thanking them, right? Because we don't know what it was like, you said, when it was harvested, and who's taking care of the land. So maybe if you're spending that extra few minutes to really connect with it and thank it and like show that respect, then I think that could probably also help. And also, if you're saging, make sure you guys are opening like windows and doors. Don't sage and leave it all in there.
Yeah.
You're gonna have everything coming out, all the things coming out from the walls and nowhere to go.
Yeah, exactly. You got to let the energy out. So make sure when you guys are saging that you do that. I think I've heard stories, not of like anyone that we knew, but just in general of people saging with everything closed and then wondering why more activity and things started ramping up after they sage was because you didn't let it out. Like it just stayed stuck in the house. So let that bitch out.
Air it out, baby.
Mm-hmm.
I just had this thought of like the importance across the board of general protections, but something that came to mind as you were speaking, I was like, it's so important, especially if you're working in an office setting, to protect yourself from other people's shit because offices and office spaces in general are so fucking toxic. Mm-hmm. And I was also thinking another place where people may not realize is grocery stores, because I oftentimes find myself, because that's where I spend a lot of my time, free time, because I enjoy going to the grocery store with our dad in particular. But I oftentimes like remind myself like, okay, we're bubbling up as we enter a public space, and same goes for him. Like I'll consciously do that for him if we're, going together. But it's just because they're communal spaces and people kind of just dump their shit, so to speak.
That's such a good point, and especially the point about dumping their shit. I've been paying attention a lot lately to how consciously or unconsciously people move through spaces. And the grocery store is a place where people like basically hand over their like consciousness. Like people move through it in such a beta state, almost like a trance. And it's like there's no awareness there. And there's a vulnerability in that. So it's a really good point. I pick up a lot of just energy in grocery stores. I also love a grocery store, and I'm like, sometimes after I go to the grocery store, I'm exhausted. It's like been a full field trip.
And I notice as well, like the different tiers of grocery stores that you go to, and that's just also based on like, the different resources that you have. Like the vibe is just different. Also, the energy of the quality of the food is as well. And if you'll notice like the difference, obviously, if you go to like, I don't know, a Vons.
I'm thinking
versus
Erewhon
like a Whole
versus
Foods
like Winco.
Erewhon's an extreme fucking version, but
right.
yes,
so Erewhon and then Winco, right? Because Winco is like the opposite end of the spectrum. So that sounds like fun.
I've never been to an Erewhon, but I hear it's wild.
It's very wild.
I've never been either. And I can't tell if I really want to go or if I like do not want to. I'll keep you posted next time I'm in California.
Yeah. You kind of have to go just for the experience of it, to witness it. I think to witness it, not necessarily because there's anything there that you need or that's going to be so great, but it's
But to see $40 carrots needs to happen in my lifetime.
It's just for the witnessing of it. Yeah, we went kind of unintentionally. I don't even think I knew what an Erewhon was when we went. And then I was like, what is this place? Like, why did we just spend that much on this? Like, it was crazy.
Yeah, it's like Disneyland. It's like the Disneyland of grocery stores.
Yeah. So aside from grocery stores, I was also thinking too, and it was something that I never really thought of until Gabby had made sure that we were bubbling up. But even when you're going into a metaphysical store, because there is so much energy, and I did pick up something once in a metaphysical store, and I know where it came from. Like it came from a tarot deck. I was looking at a tarot deck and deciding, am I ready to get one? And I left there feeling so awful. Remember? I like messaged you, I think, after, and I was like, I don't feel good.
That store didn't have good vibes. I feel like even the employees, we're not going to name where, but the employee didn't have the best intention either.
No. You're thinking of a different store. Yeah. This was over in Ventura. The other store you like going to. Yeah. And I don't know what happened, but I picked up something in a metaphysical store. So I always try to make sure, and I'm really bad about my energetic protection. Like I just forget a lot of times, but I always remember to do it anytime I walk in there, especially after I touched that tarot deck and felt just like not good at all.
Mm-hmm. It can happen. And I think anywhere there's large concentrations of energy, any type of energy, and that's a place there definitely is. The interesting thing that you said that made me think about this idea of like the protection step is that you can also set the intention that that protection lasts until you create a new bubble or until you do it again. So your bubble might be like a bit decrepit by the time you get around to it again, like it's like hanging on for dear life. But it's one of the cool things is like, yeah, help me out by keeping this in place until I create a new one, please.
Oh, I
So
love that. So, would you say if I bubbled up at the beginning of the day and say, okay, keep this in place all day, like, is that okay? Or, like, can we stretch this out like weeks? Like, what would be I guess, the ideal amount? And I know it's going to vary depending on if you're going to like concerts, if you're going to like other places where there's a large number of people, but for just kind of an everyday, I'm going to work and I'm coming home and dropping my kid off? Like, do you think putting a bubble in place for the day is sufficient, or do I need to be bubbling up several times a day?
I'm team like as least as many times as you shower a day. And that's a personal preference, but
Once or
like,
twice, yeah.
yeah, like I
Yeah.
think that that's a really good marker. Again, and this kind of goes into like why I feel like the context of this conversation is important more broadly. Like this is one part of it, but I believe that we're going into a time when it's going to be really difficult to discern with our physical senses what is real and not real in the world. And in order to be able to navigate that from an autonomous and sovereign place, we all have to begin to take responsibility for our own baseline and our own energy. Because if we're all over the place and filled with all kinds of stuff that's not ours, when you venture out or when you're fed something, it's going to be hard to know, is this for me? Is this truth? Is this in alignment? Or is it not? Because you can't even feel for yourself what your own baseline is. So that's kind of where we extrapolate this to and why this is so important. Not only is there a huge influx of intense energy on the planet right now, and we can feel it as we move through society, but that is not slowing down. And this practice is going to be paramount to being able to move through where we're going with sovereignty. And that's why I'm like so adamant about getting this message out to people now.
Do you feel like that also, do you feel like AI is going to play a big role in that? Because I could totally see that happening.
Huge. So I think we're moving to a world and we're already seeing it. I wrote a basically like, we'll use the word channel, like these kind of 5 different themes that we are going to see moving forward. And one of them was all about not being able to distinguish what's real with our 5 physical senses. And it's going to require a beyond physical acuity. So if you can't tell with your eyes, am I looking at something that's real or am I looking at something that's a deep fake, which we've seen even in the last couple months, like how much harder it has gotten to distinguish. Imagine where we're going to be in another 3 months or 6 months or a year. You have to be able to feel for yourself. Is this real? Is this true? Is what I'm looking at what I'm being told I'm looking at, or is this something else? And I think AI is going to have a lot to do with that. We can extrapolate that to, wearables and devices and neural links and like all types of ways that we might see humanity and technology deepen their integration. Yeah.
As you were saying that, I was like, that makes so much sense because of like the visual aspect. I feel like it started with the food because I'm really big on the toxicity and the fakeness of food. And I also think of the just a couple people we know, and then also just like the music industry and the entertainment industry, where they're, these celebrities, these people, they're creating like images and like 3D versions of themselves in the likeness. So, for example, like putting together, I'm just thinking of like Taylor Swift because this recently happened to her, and there's a song she came out with which is called "The Alchemy," but she basically put that together because there was an AI version that her fans were kind of like making fun of her for that this was like, oh, this is going to be the beat that she sings about to her current boyfriend, right? So she was like, messing around, making a joke of it, but the same harmony is like now in the song, but it sounded just like something like she would say and sing, because AI had essentially mimicked her voice through across like the different songs that she already has on her various, across her work. And I just think, I'm like, oh my gosh, like just wait for this to happen in, movies, and it's happening in music. And what's that going to look like? Because we're just at the start of Pluto entering Aquarius, and this is a 20-year transit. So we're just barely seeing what this is going to be.
Exactly. And what happens when you extrapolate that to politics and
Oh my gosh,
the economy? It's like, I mean, it's one thing to have Taylor Swift and the way it takes shape in entertainment, but what happens when we can't tell if what we're seeing with the leader of a country is real or not? It could get wild.
I think also think about like this more important for sure, the politics. Yes, the great example. Thank you for pointing that out. I'm also thinking of like, Tupac at Coachella, like a couple years back. I was like, oh,
that
this
was
kind
cool,
of the start
though.
of it. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
a time that it was done for great.
Yeah.
So when you said that, I have a really hard time I have a really hard time believing, even like before AI. Well, I mean, I guess not before AI, but just before like the more recent resurgence, or not even resurgence, what is it? Emergence of AI?
Emergence, yeah.
Emergence. I have a really hard time watching and believing videos that I see online. If I can't watch it on the news, if it's not coming to me from CNN, Fox News, or any kind of reputable news station, I don't believe it. Like, don't send me videos of something that you found on some random like TikTok page or Instagram, because like I don't buy it. I don't believe it.
That level of skepticism is probably very healthy and is going to serve you and all of us well to be willing to question what we're seeing.
Mm-hmm. So our mom likes to send videos, and a lot of times they're entertaining, but I don't always necessarily buy them. And I'll say like, if this didn't come from the news, like, like it was good entertainment, but I'm not gonna buy into it and get riled up over something that I don't even know is real.
And there's so much of that too, right? Even without AI, it's just context is not present. And so
Totally,
we
yeah.
lose a lot of meaning without it.
Mm-hmm. What are you thinking,
I'm
Gabs?
I know how you could see me thinking. I was looking off to the side. I was just thinking of like, because you've done many readings at this point, I would assume, because you've been a reader for like 4 to 5 years now, right?
I started in 2018. So yeah,
Wow.
it's year 5.
Year 5. How many readings would you say you've done?
At this point, I've spent thousands of hours in sessions with people. I've calculated it. So
Wow.
it's been a lot.
Yeah. That's so cool. And I was just thinking, I was like, do you feel like you have to apply different types of energetic protections at this point in the game? Or would you say like it's just like you said at the beginning of like your day, and then maybe before you go into session? Because what I was thinking when I was looking off to the side is that I have different just ways of collecting my energy throughout the day for different tasks that I'm doing, whether it's just starting my day or when I'm going to bed or if I'm reading for, a sitter. But I oftentimes find that like I might have to amp up, certain types of protections, mostly on the physical. And I'm happy to give examples, the physical level, so that I can be well resourced going into a session.
That's such a good point. And yeah, of course. I also notice like a difference from client to client, honestly. Like there's some clients that I have to be really diligent about, right after, and some that I'm like, okay, this is just like a simple hand wash, where others is like a full blown like hazmat, undressing or whatever. But like most things, it becomes kind of baked into your ritual, like just the way I live. It's part of how I live now. And I've created so much in my daily life, like the way I eat, the way I don't eat, how I move my body. Again, that Manny-Gen energy really has to constantly be in motion in order for me to flush things through my system. So there's the very intentional energetic hygiene practice, but then there's actually kind of a whole lifestyle that's built around maintaining my energetic sovereignty and my vessel to be able to conduct energy in the way that I do.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we're spiritual athletes, literally.
Great way to put it.
Yeah, it's like the way you eat, how much you sleep, what you're drinking. It's like, I mean, I'll drink alcohol here and there, but I really don't because I don't like the way it makes me feel. And your auric field's also weakened, and thereby entities can attach to you if you don't set the intention beforehand and ground your energy. So yeah, it just had me thinking because I really like my daily walks, like physically, like my walks, my sauna, showers, lately like 10 minutes of stretching at night. Like those are all ways to just keep that auric field cleansed. And those were some examples that were coming to mind that I felt called to share for the spiritual girlies and Kens, the Barbies and the Kens listening, because we do have a large psychic audience.
Walks are the unsung heroes of life in 2024. Like I seriously, there is no more important part of my daily routine or practice than like a walk with my dog. It is kind of the non-negotiable. It's just so good for every part of my being. So
I agree.
So what would you recommend for someone? So I'm thinking of kind of like the average person that's going into work at an office or wherever. Like what would be maybe a really good routine or ritual that they could have as far as protecting their energy, whether they're, practicing intuitive or not, but just, the regular person. I think back to when I was doing therapy sessions with adults. And so now with the kids, it's a little bit different because, we're like playing games and stuff. But with the adults, and they were bringing in all this heavy stuff, and I would be so drained after. And I remember as I started learning more about energy and as I, started practicing more and really like strengthening my own intuition, I realized I need to have these boundaries in place, especially I wouldn't do it with every client, but for certain clients that were coming in that I knew kind of drained me or was going to be a little bit heavier, like I was really good at that point about remembering to try to bubble up and then sitting there for a little bit and kind of decompressing. Again, I don't have to do that as much now because, the little ones aren't bringing that heavy stuff, which is kind of nice. But what would you recommend for like the average person? And then maybe for someone who is like a coach, because we do have a lot of people that are doing like coaching and that type of work. Like, would you say it might look a little bit different for them than for the average person? Or could they kind of share the same type of ritual? And what would that look like?
I would say this is a shameless plug for my daily energy practice that you can find on angelicaray.com. It's also, I believe, in my Instagram bio, which is at Angelica Ray. It's free. And it's an audio recording, so you can actually listen to me walk you through all of the steps. I also have, I think, a really cool graphic somewhere on my Instagram page where you can like go through each of the steps with me. I walk you through. So that's where I would start. Honestly, that's why I created it, because I get this question all the time. And it is a combination of those 4 steps: cleanse, clear, charge, and protect. Once you have that baseline, you can make this like it works for everyone. It works for regular, degular Alice going, she's obviously not regular, degular. She's obviously a queen, but like it works for her going into her, wild corporate job or her very boring corporate job or her very stressful corporate job. And it also works for someone I have clients who work in psychiatric wards at hospitals, with like people who are severely mentally ill, and they'll come to me and they'll be like, I feel fucked up. And I'm like, yeah, no shit. Like you're walking. Of course you do. And those people, interestingly enough, like sometimes can be hard to read for because if you're not perceptive to what you're experiencing in their field, it can be hard to separate the truth of them from what is attached to them. And I'm like, if it's hard for me to discern as someone who's incredibly perceptive in my instrument, I could only imagine what it feels like being and walking in that experience daily, it's probably so hard to determine like, was that my intrusive thought? Or like, I don't normally, like that's a whole different ballgame. So I say that to say those 4 steps, literally you can make them as quick or as robust and thorough as you need them to be for wherever you are in your practice.
How long is your recording? Like if someone's going to listen to it, how long will it take them to go through
I
it?
think it's like 12 to 15 minutes maybe. And I always say, like, some people like to listen to that every day. Cool. If you're into that, great. I love that for you. And I'm happy to be the voice that guides you. I'm also a very powerful transmitter of energy. So, like, I am actually clearing you while you're hearing me walk you through it. It's not just a meditation. There's a lot of kind of coding that is in that audio transmission. But you can also, again, once you get the basics down, you can do it in as little as 5 minutes or in as little as 50 seconds if you need to. Energy doesn't necessarily need a certain amount of time or space or whatever to get the job done. It's about that intention.
So that would be something that would be good at the beginning of the day. What about at the end of the day? It's nighttime and, we want to just kind of cut cords from anything that we might have connected to that day. We want to cleanse our energy. We want to make sure that we're getting ourselves ready for sleep so that way we can have, good sleep, uninterrupted sleep, making sure that we're only being visited by like beings of the light, or making sure that we're only traveling to realms that are of like higher vibrations and not, anywhere scary. So, what would you recommend for nighttime? Would it look really similar or would it be a little bit different?
This is a boring answer, but I think the steps are the same. It's just maybe the intention with which you do them is different. That protection, instead of protecting yourself to go out into the real physical world, is like protection to guard your sleep realms, right? Protection to guard yourself from, what you might experience in the recesses of the unconscious mind and dreaming. So I think there's really not like a huge distinction. It comes down to, again, that intention and what are you using it for? This like sparked something really interesting when you asked about that. I don't know about you guys, but like the dream landscape has seemed so vivid lately. Yeah. And like to the point where I've found myself like wanting to sleep in simply so that I can stay and like experience, because there's so much happening. It feels so different than everyday life. So if you're into that, maybe setting the intentions before you go to sleep, for kind of what you want that experience to be or what you're processing through. Or if not, and if you just need some rest, maybe setting the intention that like you're not available for a high activity night and that you really want to be protected so that you can actually have like restful sleep, and that any integration that's happening is happening very subtly and very gently in the background, and you are resting peacefully.
I dream so vividly just nightly, so I don't really notice as much of a difference, but I was on a group thread recently where they were talking about that, like, hey, are people's dreams a little more vivid lately? And for me, they're just vivid all the time. We were talking this morning, me and Gabs and Brianna, about dreams. Brianna sent this random text late last night, and I was like, oh, great, now I'm going to dream about this. And so she asked about it in the morning, and I said, yeah. And I told her, I just dream all the time. Like, I have so many dreams. And it reminds me of that reel. Have you seen it where it's like me wondering why I'm so tired every morning? And then it's like the person dancing in the astral realms. It's like, me traveling in the astral realms while I'm sleeping. And like, I feel like that's me, because I don't not dream. Like, I don't think I've ever, I'm sure I have, but I can't recall a night that I haven't had a dream. Like, it's just all the time.
Intuitively, it is. What I'm intuitively picking up too is that you actually process a lot for other people, and that you're like,
yeah, that's so true.
So like immediately I was just hearing like you're willing, it's like stuff that you're not willing to sit with people with in like your everyday life, maybe because you're like busy or you just it's not yours to do, you're somehow more willing to process it for them in the unconscious dream realm. So maybe give people back their own shit to process.
I think I need to add that to my energy, or like my cord cutting is like cutting the cords and then take your shit, because I probably do.
Yeah. I'm not responsible for processing anybody's stuff but my own.
You hear that, Brianna? Don't be sending us those messages late last night with those dumb questions.
You know what I was thinking as you were saying that, Nick?
Huh.
You know how you get migraines and your crown chakra is completely open? I was like, that has to be related in some capacity, and you maybe like not even consciously taking on other people's shit. But I'm like, yeah, because that makes sense, because that's one of your strongest clairs. So of course, like the dreams are even more wild. And
they're
also,
wild.
They're wild, yeah. And I was thinking to that point, Neptune is in Pisces at the 29th degree, and that planet rules over dreams and in the sign of dreams. And pretty much it's like going to be even more heightened until he moves on to Aries next year, I believe. So astrologically, if you're having wild dreams, guys, it's because of what Neptune is doing in the sky.
Thanks, Neptune. Great.
Yeah.
Do you have any other
This was so
questions?
enlightening. No, I definitely learned quite a bit, and I feel like there's some stuff for me to sit with.
So I'm definitely gonna go and download your clearing, or not clearing. What did you call it? Your 5-step
daily energy practice.
Daily energy practice. It's not, but it's not 5 steps. It's 4 steps. Where am I getting the number 5 from?
I don't know. Maybe you have an extra step in there that your guides are asking you to add. So,
gosh, I don't have time. Oh gosh,
the Manny Gens would like, I need an extra step. I need one more thing to do.
Because God forbid, something be like easy and streamlined. Yeah, I definitely am gonna do that, because I think I really struggle with it, where I don't always like kind of know, and then I forget, and then I think like I need to do it every time I'm encountering somebody new. But I like how you said, set the intention that it's for the whole day, and then, maybe close it up, because I shower every day after I get off of work, because I've been around kids and they're gross. So I'm like, I want all the germs off of me. So, so I always go shower. So it's like, okay, there's like the first, I can take that off. And then maybe like I bubble up. I do actually bubble us all up at night, to try to protect us while we're sleeping. So then there's that like second bubble going up for sleep. And then, maybe I put a new one on in the morning. I don't know. Like when I
think you've got it.
I just forget sometimes, and then it feels like a lot of steps, and I get like tired, even though I'm not doing anything, but I get like emotionally just, this is like too much, and I'm not going to do it. So definitely something I need to work on.
I'll bring it back to intention, and just saying that like the divine wants to support you and knows your intention, and you are supported in staying protected. So it's like, even though the human mind is not maybe consciously doing it all of the time, just kind of allowing it to be, I don't know, I have this like theory that those of us who are doing light work, like God, the divine spirit is fucking showing up for us right now, because it's not easy work. So if you've made the agreement to walk this path in any sort of way, we're being met with the support for that. And that includes in this protection realm as well.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. Well, you've already shared your website. You said angelicaray.com, and your Instagram is at Angelica Ray. So you guys go and download the, oh my gosh, why can't I remember? I'm sorry. The daily energy practice. It's not even hard words, but I can't remember. Daily energy practice. Go download that. And yeah, we'll include it in the notes. Scott and Ryan, I'm going to send this to you guys ahead of time, and Kevin, because you guys are definitely going to need that when you go to the Conjuring House. So I'm going to send those links to them before this comes out, and make sure you guys take the time to do it. And yeah, anything else that you're going to be dropping soon? Are you going to have any new offerings, or like offering any programs, or what's going on your end?
Right now I'm offering, speaking of themes, I've been seeing a lot of people coming in with like major questions. I know you guys dropped a really amazing, rich episode about work and people's relationship to work, and like purpose and their intuition and navigating kind of the times that we're in. So I'm actually in the middle of a 3-week workshop series right now that is focused on helping people reframe their perspective to purpose and how they live that purpose in the world. That I'm considering maybe making available on demand after we're done with our live session. So stay tuned for that. And then I always am offering one-on-one sessions right now. I took them away for a while and then really miss connecting with people in that way. So that's a way to kind of acquaint ourselves is in a one-on-one session. And those are really dynamic. We kind of go with whatever is needed, anything from, more of that intuitive guidance to a healing practice. It's so led by what serves in that given moment. And we kind of pull from a really wide toolbox. And then I do a lot of mentorship and coaching one-on-one, which is my favorite work to do. I love guiding people in that way. And that really deep, rich container allows for people who maybe didn't experience themselves as super spiritual or wanted to strengthen their intuition. When we get in there and start to do some of the deeper psychological work, spiritual work, emotional work, what I find is that people's natural intuition comes through in really beautiful ways. So we're going to take a tangent. I know we're wrapping this up, but what I'll say is accessing intuition, accessing your own spiritual gifts, accessing your autonomy is not something that we do outside of ourselves. And it's like a river. It flows naturally. It flows innately. And our job is to remove anything that's obstructing us from that nature. And when we do that, I think you guys could probably both attest to being on your own healing and awakening journeys. Naturally, as you release what is not you, that beautiful, clear, divine intuition that is you flows much more strongly. So that's the work that I'm clearly incredibly excited and passionate about guiding people with in this season.
So you're not busy at all. It sounds like you just have so much free time, and oh my God, it's a lot. Oh, you're a busy gal. Okay.
It is. But I wouldn't have it any other way.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Okay, guys, we'll go check out everything Angelica Ray. And like I said, for all you soul reading method, soul teacher graduates or future students, this is the OG right here. So consider yourselves honored. Okay, Angelica, thank you so much. And would you mind doing our card pull for the collective?
I would love to. So I'm going to use a deck that's different. It's a rune deck. I love the runes.
So pretty.
Yeah, it's a gorgeous deck. You can see they're really just beautiful gold foil cards. And yeah, I have a beautiful connection and love this deck so much. So let's see what is here. Okay. All right. Aw. Okay, so this is the rune of homeland, Othala. And this is really about nurturing the places and spaces that we call home and really pouring back into our communities. I know you guys have talked a lot about ancestral lands, and I know, Gabby, your trip to Hawaii brought up a lot for you around how we nourish the places and spaces that we're from. So I would say, are you nourishing the ground that nourishes you, and how are you pouring back into who and what you are, your lineage, and more, I think we're feeling called to reconnect with the ground beneath our feet, the people on our doorsteps and beside us in real life. And so I will be so blessed and so grateful for our ability to connect like this through technology, but also knowing that nourishing in-person community is important.
Definitely.
That was so beautiful. And my third eye was burning the whole time. I was like, oh my gosh, it's on fire. So it's complete validation.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Thank you.
And we'll include the link to the deck too if you guys are interested. It's really pretty. So check it out.
Check it out on YouTube, guys.
Yeah. All right. Thank you so much, Angelica. And thank you for hanging in there with all of the technological issues we had. Because, we usually get them, but we haven't had them this bad in a while, huh?
No, we haven't. So that just tells, it's like Angelica was saying, there's some nuggets here. So we can't wait to hear all the downloads that you guys get.
Yeah.
We love hearing from you guys after episodes, so
Yeah.
make sure to reach out.
Okay, guys, we'll see you. Oh, wait a minute. Oh my gosh, is it going to be 4th of July? Is that going to be our next
After this
episode?
one.
No, I know.
Yeah.
Is that when it comes? Let's see. Okay, it'll be July
We're
2nd. Okay. I wasn't sure if
almost
we
there.
were dropping on 4th of July. Okay, we'll see you guys in July.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye.